Gesundheit. If someone sneezes, that's what I say. You may say, God bless you. When I ask people, what does Gesundheit mean? They say it means God bless you. What really doesn't mean God bless you? The term Gesundheit, there's no English word for it. The term Gesundheit really means healthiness. It's like saying, here's to your health. The word gesund means health. When I was a kid, we had posters that would say, Rauchen ist ungesund, smoking is unhealthy. Okay? And then Heit or Kite, K-E-I-T or H-E-I-T, both mean the state of being, right? So happiness, Fröhlichkeit. Healthiness, Gesundheit. When someone sneezes, you're wishing them health. Okay? You're not really saying God bless you, you're wishing them good health. Today in the reading from James, and I love the reading from James, I griped a little bit to you a couple weeks ago about the book of John. We had 6 weeks of the bread of life passage. I was so tired by the 78th week of I am the bread of life. I was so glad to get through John. It's like green for 6 months up there, right? We're in James. Now, I love James. I've been in James for about 5 weeks, and I'm never going to gripe because it's my favorite book. I'm never going to gripe about James because James is so practical. It's so sort of laid out for you. It's a great way to look at life. Today, James gives us a cue, a picture of what healthiness, Gesundheit, looks like for the Christian community. Maxie Dunham, a very famous Methodist preacher and writer, talks about an experience he had going through an airport. Usually at airport layovers, he's working on a book. He sits by himself and talks to his little machine, and then his secretary types it up, and he speaks his manuscript. Well, one of these times he was in a layover in an airport, and he didn't have a book to work on, and he didn't have much going on, so he just took a walk around the airport. And he noticed posters for all these destinations all over the airport. Posters of Germany with its pictures of Bavarian Alps. Posters of Las Vegas with the Strip and a big roulette wheel. Posters of New Orleans with jazz musicians. Posters of New York City with a skyline and a Big Apple. He got to thinking, if we were to put up a travel poster for the church, what would it look like? What would that picture be like if we were to put up a big travel poster to invite people to the church? What would Christianity look like? It got me thinking. James, in this particular chapter 5, talks in some ways about what it might look like to do a travel poster for the church. What does it look like to be healthy in Christianity? Because I'll be really honest with you, I'm the only pastor I know, and I hesitate saying this out loud for fear you throw something at me, I'm the only pastor I know who openly says, I'm not a huge fan of Jesus followers. I love Jesus, but his fan club is really annoying. I don't really like Christians. I'm sorry. I just have to admit it. I think Christians are the reason why most people don't go to church anymore. They like God. They like Jesus. His message is great. Like Mahatma Gandhi said, I love Jesus. I just really don't like his followers. If your Christians are more like your Christ, I'd be a Christian. But Christians aren't much like Christ. That's the problem. That's the problem. I'm a pastor, and most times not because I admire the church, but because I think the church needs to do better. When most of my friends have walked away, I won't, because I know there's something different. There's something that's got to change. What might it look like? What would it look like if we were to be what James talks about today? The church is a place of prayer. James says this, "Are any among you sick? Let them call for the elders of the church, let them pray over them, anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord, and the prayer of faith will save the sick, and the Lord will raise them up, and if they've committed sins, they will be forgiven." The church is a praying place. Prayer does something for us, I believe. And I don't believe just Christian prayer. I believe meditation does the same thing. I believe that it's that act that centers us with the presence of God. For me, that's what prayer is. Prayer is not rubbing the bottle so that the magic genie Jesus comes out and does our will. That's evangelicalism, not us guys. Click your heels together 3 times and say there's no place like Rome, right? No, that's not our faith either. Okay? No. Jesus is not magic Jesus that comes out of the bottle and does our wish. selfish, right? You ain't never had a friend like me. No. Prayer, meditation, whatever it is that we do, all it's doing, frankly, all it's doing is centering us in the presence of the holy and allowing God's Spirit to speak to us, in us, and through us. It's communing with our holy, with God, so that our lives can be changed. Prayer does something in us. Prayer does something for us, and prayer does something through us. I believe that prayer changes things, but I don't believe it's because we've said a certain prayer a certain way for a certain number of days, and now all of a sudden Jesus grants us our magic wish. That's a little middle-aged superstition. We outgrew that about 600 years ago. Some of us outgrew that 600 years ago. Some have not. Prayer grounds us in the presence of the Holy Spirit, and in so doing, it unites us with God's presence. And it helps me to hear God's voice more clearly. And it helps me, more importantly, to be God's voice more clearly for someone who needs it. The church is a praying place because through prayer, we're inspired and we're empowered to act on God's behalf. The church is also a celebrating place, James tells us. Are any of you here cheerful? Let them sing praise. The early church loved to sing. Our German church friends love to sing. As you know, not this week, the last week, I was in Germany for 2 days, but unfortunately because of COVID, it was by Zoom. And so I was up from 3 in the morning till 9 in the morning in a workshop from Germany, which was there 9 till 3 in the afternoon. And Germans love to sing. German Christians, for some reason, when they begin their meeting, they sing. When they go on a break, they sing. When they end their meeting, they sing. They love to sing their hymns. When they come here for things. Can we sing? I guess we're going to sing. Okay. I'm an American. I want to get to business and move on and go home. They love to sing. The church is a celebrating place, and we are a joyful people. Boy, that's a surprise, isn't it? Christians are a joy. Have you been to churches? Have you seen a lot of joy? The church I grew up in wasn't a very joyous place. It was, you know the ones, don't you? I'm so happy. I know Jesus. Really? There's a surprise because you don't sound very happy. Christians are joyful. Why? Because we understand what God has done for us in our lives. If you don't feel joy and gratitude for what God has done in your life, I challenge you to think about it a little bit. To think about the things that your life has given you, the people who love you, the relationships that sustain you, the things you have, the things you enjoy. Sometimes Rob and I'll just tell a personal story. Sometimes Rob's my husband, sometimes we'll just sit around and we'll just all of a sudden one of us will go, how did we get here? Like, how did we get here? Both of us from single mothers. Not uncommon to be on food stamps. Not uncommon to have to eat macaroni and cheese and ramen noodle soup and hot dogs because the money was a little. I remember when I was a kid, we had $3 a day was our budget for food. $3 a day. That was for the two of us, Mom and me. How did we get to a beautiful home, trips to Europe, a loving church family, and a doctoral degree? That wasn't just from me. Blessings, gratitude. Sometimes you can't help just looking around and going, wow, you know what? Life can be really good sometimes in a surprising way. When you realize the gratitude and the blessings of God in your life, you can't help but be thankful. Early Christians were a joyful people because they knew what it meant to believe in the faithfulness of God. The church should be a celebrating people. The church should also be a caring place. It should be a caring people. Brothers and sisters, James writes, if any of you are wandering from the truth and someone brings them back, let them know that whoever brings back a sinner from the error of their way will save their soul and cover a multitude of sin. James, in his book, is giving us the picture of a people caring for the needs of others. I read a story about a plane There were 155 people on board a plane flying from Australia on February 24th, 1989. A cargo door that had malfunctioned was blown off the plane mid-flight. Of course, 9 people perished when pressurized air pulled them from the plane at 24,000 feet. Carrie Lappin, who was age 31, sitting by the hole, was scared to death and told reporters she believed this was going to be it. This was the end. I don't know who he was, she said, but a man sitting in front of me reached back and grabbed my hand. And in that moment, it's all I needed was to know that I was safe and I wasn't alone. It was so loving and so comforting to have someone's hand to hold. You see, not only when our life is being threatened, but it's always comforting to have someone's hand to hold. Maybe that's what it means to be the church. When as a teenager we've lost our way, or we've lost the person we loved who we thought would be our forever love in high school. Or when as a parent, our teenage child is trying their wings and we're not so sure we like it. When a spouse has died, when our job has crumbled and our checkbook is getting low, when someone's spoken a harsh word and we're hurt and we're angry and we're wounded. There are all sorts of occasions when it's comforting to have someone's hand to hold. I read a Facebook post at about 10:59 when I was sitting back there getting ready to come in. I said hi to Steve as he walked through. I looked down on Facebook and somebody put a post on. And I wrote back and said, "This is in my sermon this morning. Thank you." It said, sometimes you just need to have someone who's willing to say those 3 little words you're longing to hear. And not those 3 little words. He said, these, I got you. That's what it means to be the church. Gesundheit means healthiness. What does it look like to be a healthy church? We look to the Epistle of James. A place that prays, a place that celebrates, and a place that cares. A small boy, after being tucked into bed at night, decided he was a little scared and he yelled out, "Mommy, I don't like being in here in the dark. I'm scared. I want someone to be with me." And the mom said, "Honey, it's okay. You're fine. God is always with you wherever you go." He said, "I know that, but I want somebody with skin on his face." That's kind of who Jesus was. God with skin on his face. And if we understand the Epistle of James appropriately, guys, that's who we should be too. What does it mean for a church to be healthy? It's a church where God has some extra skin on his face. And that face looks a lot like you and me. Amen.